Hello. Thank you so very much for having invited us to be part of European Wool Day. We're really thrilled. I'm here to explain to you about our wool well-being project that we worked on, myself and my second year SPHE class, for this year's project. For Wool Day, I'm going to bring all our project work displayed on boards, and I have a folder. Actually, I have the folder here that you probably can't see clearly. So I'm going to bring this along with me, and I'm going to just summarize very quickly to you what we have done. If you have any questions, please get in touch, or if you would like to use any of our resources, you're more than welcome. My name is Anja Sammon. I work as an SPHE and CSPE teacher at our school here in Galway City in the west of Ireland. It's a co-educational school. We have boys and girls in it, and our school has a large range of nationalities. We have more than 80 nationalities in our secondary school. So I work with teenagers, and in spring of this year, my class, my SPHE class 2C, we explored well-being techniques that are used in class. So we tried to find out a few different things. What was on our mind was to figure out which types of mindfulness exercises are there and how do they actually work? Do they work for all students equally well? And most of all, of course, which well-being exercises work best? Now, I was particularly interested in finding out if crafting used as a mindfulness tool has a positive impact on students' mental health, and if teenagers enjoy working with their hands. Crafting currently does not form part of the SPHE curriculum as a technique that would be recommended to improve well-being by our Irish Department of Education. But crafting used to be quite widespread in primary and in post-primary secondary schools as activities, but this has changed, and I'll explain to you a little bit more about that later on. The students who took part in the project were of an average of 14 years of age, and they're all in junior cycle, as it's called. So in junior cycle, students attend different subjects under the well-being umbrella to foster their personal development and their social skills and their well-being. SPHE stands for Social, Personal and Health Education, and it is currently not an exam subject for junior cycle. It's a discussion-based subject, and content can be designed by teachers within the constraints of what is called the learning strands that have to be met. Now, traditionally, post-primary schools in Ireland are really still very much focused on visual learning, in other words, reading, auditory learning, so listening and talking, and their reading and writing skills. And now, kinesthetic learning, or in other words, learning by doing, is in the minority. And most students in our school had no previous idea of using a craft and haven't tried it before. So you can see the classroom here where we did our project. So over the last 2 years, I conducted well-being projects using fiber skills and textile skills as part of the well-being curriculum in classes. Now I'll show you a very quick example of what we did for those projects. So one project that you see here, where I labeled it as Fashion Future, this was a project where students designed alternative school uniforms which would be made from entirely Irish grown and processed natural fibers. And on the right side, you see the second project, which we worked on last year, which was called Wool Makes Sense. And Wool Makes Sense was where we made fidget toys for our autism class entirely from natural materials. And we used a range of skills for this. So students were weaving, felting, knitting, there was some embroidery and modeling. We did some modeling as well for this. So these were the previous projects. During a discussion that we had in our school regarding behavioral management that we were using, different techniques that we were using in our school, I explained the positive impact that textile projects had had on my students. We all agreed that long-standing behavior challenges are often rooted in the students' stress response. And even though that many approaches that we had tried and school initiatives, um, they hadn't really seemed to have taken hold to make a long-standing change to the students' behaviors. So I had learned that these had made a huge change. It had helped build the students' confidence. They had improved their social skills and improved their focus. They had provided purpose to the students, and they had also really relaxed the students during and after those exercises that we were doing. So we decided that fiber projects could be explored further as a tool for behavior modification in our school. And my idea came from research that I then took part in by a lecturer from the Irish Technical University in Sligo. And the lecturer's name is Michelle McCabe, and Michelle had done research about the positive impact that textile crafts can have on a range of ages, actually starting from primary school. And when we were doing this interview, I asked her, did she have any experience with the positive impact this has on teenagers? And she said to me at that time, there had actually been very little research done on well-being, really positive well-being techniques for teenagers, including crafting. So I thought this might be a good opportunity for us to try this within the class framework. So to start the project, I devised it all, and we started off, and you can see this on the slide here, by the students doing a basic introduction to needle felting. So they had no experience with it, so I just asked them to do anything that they wanted to do. They could just try the technique out. Then as our second step, the students were exploring the definition of their emotions. So we gathered in a circle and we discussed what a busy mind means, that a busy mind can be positive and negative. And then they worked on a worksheet, and you can see it there at the bottom of the slide, entitled How to Bust Your Ruminations. And this was about which techniques can you use, would you use yourselves to put yourself at ease when you feel stressed. And then this was followed by a guided meditation. So I gave the students a prompt, and they were imagining themselves in a beautiful place. And just to explore it, they would walk into a cottage. There was a treasure chest. They opened up the treasure chest, and in that would be beautiful memories. And they could look at them and take their time with them and then return back to the classroom. Now, it's recommended for students to do guided meditations as part of the curriculum. And when we discussed this afterwards, the students said that they experienced this as being very challenging. Some said that to sit in a circle, to close their eyes, to sit in a quiet room in a circle facing each other, focusing on their breath and surrendering to their inner thoughts. They thought this was quite unsettling. They found it quite confronting. And they said that they felt out of control, and it actually wasn't as successful as I had expected. So what we did next, go to the next slide. And this was followed then by a second guided meditation. And the script for that was on the previous board that you've just seen. And that was, again, this time we decided to change the layout of the room a little bit. We had the students sit in single rows, which they are familiar with, and they were allowed to do whatever they wanted. Keep your eyes open or put your head on the table, it's up to you. And this time, again, they were in a space that they imagined somewhere like a forest, but now they would walk out onto a clearing, and they would meet a character there who would be sitting on a large, comfortable bench with lots of cushions. They would sit down beside that character and be as happy as they have ever felt. And this character now could be anything. It could be looking like somebody they would know, or it could be their pet, it could be their favorite fairy tale character, it could be anybody. And they would just sit and have a chat and just really experience this, like really like a positive, the positive emotions that they had discussed previous. And they would walk around together and talk to each other and so on, and then after a while they would return back to the classroom. So when we discussed this afterwards, this had a much more positive effect on the students. This act of inward looking, so to say, was much more experienced now by them. They already were familiar with this, and they felt much more comfortable with the layout of the room. They felt less exposed, less embarrassed. And after that, the students were able to sit then and they drew that character that they had met, and they could draw any character that they liked, or they could simply do a drawing of the setting. So this could be maybe a football, an empty football, or a full football stadium that they would have been in, that they would have loved, that they might have loved that experience of being at that match, or they would have been by the beach, or in their bedroom, or anywhere at all. So they could do an image of either the character or the space that had made them really happy. And then that was followed by step 5. And this gives you an overview of step 5, which was the actual making of the character. So now they were able to sit down and make their character in needlefelt. I had planned for this to be taken place over 3 60-minute classes, but as it turned out, it was so popular, we did it over 4 classes in the end. So the students really enjoyed to go back to this activity because they had really enjoyed it the first time around. The atmosphere in the room, both of myself and Olive, both of us noticed that the atmosphere was really positive, was really uncharged. There seemed to be no confrontation between the students. It was very supportive. There was none of the usual stress-triggered discipline procedures and issues that we had put in place and experienced before. The students had really open, trusting conversations with each other. They were just sitting together, they were chatting, they could get up if they wanted to, walk around the room, look at each other's work, and laughed, and really found this was fun, and really explaining what they were doing to each other and what these characters meant to them. And they had given them names, they had thought of what they could say, so this all worked out very well for them. So both I and Olive really noticed that students had asked to spend more time on this project. So this felt making task was really seemed to be really one of their favorite parts of the project. So I decided to explore this a little bit more, and then students finished in evaluation form as their own, to record their own reaction as part of this project. And this is the next slide. And here you can now see my project analysis. Now this was of course what I was really interested in, but the students at the end of this project had to fill in their own self-evaluation form anyway. And I then sat down and I looked over it in detail to see what they had stated in their own responses to it. So in my analysis of this Creating Calm project, and the students developed a range of really positive mental health coping strategies, but I felt, or both myself and Olive, I need to say, because we had a lot of discussions about this afterwards, we felt that they do need to be modified and to respond to the students' individual needs. All the graphs that are up here are also in the folder and in support work if anybody would be interested in getting more of this information to root through it in greater detail. So in the majority of the students' opinions. The class activities need to be social settings for them to be positive experiences. So they do really, first and foremost, ranked the popularity of the filmmaking. The reason for it was that they were able to sit, chat, and yes, focused on the activity, but it was there was a large social element to it. Now, we also found that not every student enjoys crafting. To me, this was interesting because, of course, I love crafting, and I have to say, I was secretly hoping that all the students were going to enjoy it, but they provided other alternatives to which ways they would prefer to relax. So there would have been sports and taking a nap, listening to music, all of this. But what did fascinate us was that crafting, in our case now, felt making, always ranked in first or second place in popularity at all times throughout the students' evaluations, and was appreciated by the students for many different reasons. Most of all, because of the social aspect. It could have been the sound, the soothing and repetitive movement, the relaxing atmosphere, the feeling of pride in their work and accomplishment. So it worked. It was a really good package because it involved a lot of different interests, but it was all expressed through the element of fiber crafting. Another interesting discovery that we made was that the use of digital devices didn't feature at all. It only featured in one answer. So the students were not interested in including digital devices in their, so to say, enjoyment categories. This might have been because they realized the stress factor that this actually entails. The answers also showed that the students experience school as a place that they would not associate with relaxation, and they would not connect it with a relaxing well-being activity. To make a change in this culture, students really need to be guided to foster a real shift in their understanding of what education means. So a place within traditional academic framework has to be established to grow a recognized environment for well-being while still maintaining a space for academic performance and challenge and achievement. So both of these could work side by side, but that definitely has to be looked at. There was one question that we asked them, which was, would you do this activity again? And in this, 68.4% of students answered with yes, while 31.6 answered no. Now, considering our starting point that 1 or 2 out of an entire group of 21 students had previous experience with filmmaking, we felt that this was a great start having made this. And as it turned out, when we offered them in the classes following on from this project, would you like to watch a movie, or would you like to do a craft activity, or would you like to do this, giving them options, they would choose now to do an interactive activity that could be crafting. And this is a great step forward in our point of view. Now, we also felt that this is a new era of education, and new challenges are faced by teenagers, which have never been seen before. Like traditional school education is built on skills which are going extinct and are being replaced by technology, which adds new stresses and eliminates social, academic, and haptic skills. For the teenage mind to manage this, we need to provide new ways to cope. And according to our students, crafting is a good place to start. Um, yeah, here you have a little bit more of the project analysis, and you can see there in the center of the slide where we asked them, would you like to do this project again? We also looked at the learning style analysis, and we really felt that social skills ranked first. Haptic skills and their interest in doing something with the hands actually only ranks in third place. So the fact that this is a social activity is really a very important part of this. I would personally recommend crafting to be employed as a relaxation activity throughout schools, but this does require rethinking from both teachers and students. In an appropriate framework, crafting has the capacity to alleviate stress and to improve behavior, focus, and resilience. But in my opinion, and in the opinion of my students, we felt activities can be very easily fed into everyday school to replace traditional means of behavior modification techniques which have been employed for misbehaviors rooted in stress responses, like detentions, repetitive write-outs. This could be a really good alternative for improved confidence and de-stressing. There is one thing that I wanted to just say before I finish up, and this is regarding the policies of the Irish Department of Education and Youth, where I did look it up to do my own little bit of research, as in what happened, why was there a change away from using crafts in an education framework, specifically in post-primary schools. And I did see that the specific date when Irish post-primary schools stopped offering textile crafts, that is not explicitly mentioned, but it is noted that the curriculum has evolved over time, and it says here, with a focus on modern and flexible educational approaches, the junior cycle framework, and what is the new digital strategy for schools aimed to equip students with the necessary skills and competencies for modern society, which may have influenced the decision to reduce or to eliminate traditional subjects as like textile crafts. And I believe that I understand, yes, it's a good way of thinking to prepare teenagers for adolescence and their adult futures, to focus on digital literacy, but I believe there is definitely a space for both to work in tandem. And this is really what our project has shown. So if anybody would be interested in finding out more about our project, let me show you my last slide. You can contact me on my email address, or I'm on Instagram, and I post some of our schoolwork on Instagram as well, but you can contact me and I'll be very happy to show you any more about our project if you're interested. So thank you all so very much, and I will hope to meet you at Wool Day, or yeah, some other way. Thank you so very much again. Bye bye.